Hey, fellow travelers. Welcome to a new day. This is Zen, and thank you for joining me on our journey coming back from fear. Today is episode 14, and in this episode, we're going to focus on what fear drives us to judge others. A young couple moved into a new neighborhood, and the next morning, while they were eating breakfast, the young woman saw her neighbor hanging the washing outside. That laundry's not very clean. She doesn't know how to wash correctly. Perhaps she needs better laundry soap. Her husband looked on, remaining silent. Every time her neighbor hung her washing out to dry, the young woman made the same comments. A month later, the woman was surprised to see a nice clean wash on the line and said to her husband, "Look, she's finally learned how to wash correctly. I wonder who taught her that." The husband replied, "I got up early this morning and cleaned our windows." Oops. And that kind of sums it up, eh? Our perception of the world is influenced through which eyes we are looking through. Every moment, we are either looking through the eyes of unconditional love, or we are looking through the eyes of fear or conditional love. One sure way to know which set of eyes we are looking through is to ask ourselves if we are judging others or ourselves. If we are, then we are looking through the eyes of fear, the conditional love laws. Our fear ego is taking us on a tour of this huge amusement park with the primary purpose of providing us experiences of conditional love so that we can contrast those directly against our true selves, unconditional love. When we are in fear and judging others against our long list of expectations, we don't feel peaceful about it. We are usually agitated, angry, hurt, crying, or plotting revenge. In our drive to perfectly obey and meet all our conditional love laws, we have this strong desire to control everything around us. But that is like herding cats. We can get one to stay in one spot, and while we are trying to make sure the other cat is in the right spot, the other one wanders off. And as we continue to try to have all the circumstances happen that we think should happen, we actually end up feeling even more out of control when we are hit with the reality that there is little that we have control over in this planet except our attitude about what is happening outside us. Our fear ego is always gathering new information on the supposed to be around us, and it is easily influenced by the opinions and fears of others. Have you ever liked an individual, either a public figure or a person you met at work or a party or through other friends, and thought they were awesome, and then someone ends up sharing a different opinion of them? That person cheated on their partner, or don't trust them. They borrowed some money from me and never paid me back. Or, careful with that one. They're a liar. Suddenly our bubble is burst, and even without knowing the other person's side of the story, or whether or not there's any foundation to the statements, our own opinion of the person is challenged and possibly changed. All that information is suddenly stored in our brains under the folder for that person, and it isn't normally removed very easily. Having our own long list of conditional love laws can be overwhelming as it is, but adding another person's or a group of persons or a billion persons' lists along with ours is what brings us to a frustrated point of disappointment in our lives. We become exhausted trying to meet everyone's expectations and trying to make sure everyone else is meeting up to the expectations of others. This is especially difficult because there are expectations that contradict one another. You should be funny. No, you should be serious. You should be a blonde. No, you should be brunette. No, you should be a redhead. You should go to college. No, you should become an artist. No, you should move to another country and become a missionary. So many expectations and opinions on who we should be or who someone else should be. Even when we hear good news from someone about their lives, we try to be happy for them, but our fear ego is suddenly comparing our success to their success or their success to other people's success because we want to make sure we are lovable and acceptable, meeting the illusion of all our expectations. We judge others because we are judging ourselves. If we are going to have to obey this long list of requirements to be lovable, by golly, we will make sure that everyone else is obeying too. When we are unconditionally loving ourselves, we are free from these conditional love laws, and then we release everyone else from our policing mentality. We are then free to love everyone else unconditionally too. In a single second, we can move from a place of judgment and stress and fear to one of peace. When we let go of conditional love and remember unconditional love, the world transforms in front of our eyes. How do we do that, Zen? How do we let go of conditional love laws? Well, in my life, there have been a variety of tools that I've come across. I'm actually gathering them and adding them to my website, bradazen.com, under a section called My Path. So check that out for other resources. But in this podcast, I want to specifically talk about one of the items that significantly changed my life and continues to change my life. Because it is our thoughts and beliefs about life that create our struggle, our pain, our suffering, it is in questioning these thoughts that sets us free from them. I've mentioned in a few episodes a process that an amazing lady, Byron Katie, came up with called The Work. She created what is called a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet that basically has 6 questions that you fill out about a specific situation where you have uncomfortable emotions around that situation, a situation you'd like to question. So you let your ego step up to the mic and fill that baby out with pure, raw emotion without trying to be spiritual or writing down what you think, people would want you to write down. This is an opportunity for the fear ego to throw up all that suppressed emotion. And really, the more honest you are with your answers, the bigger the impact to you internally. It is designed to be like a meditative experience, soul searching and viewing what is happening within us. So that's not like a test or a quiz. It's really for self-reflection. All the information, the instructions, the worksheet, they're all available for free on her website at thework.com. I'll put a link in the description of the podcast as well. She even has videos on how to complete the process on the site and plenty of YouTube videos showing people working through their own worksheets with her. It's simply fantastic. I start watching one, I just can't stop watching them. Right. So what you do is you fill out that worksheet, and then once the worksheet is filled out, then you start the process of asking 4 questions around the statements. And those 4 questions are like, number 1 is it true? You simply answer yes or no. You commit to that 1-syllable answer, no explanations or defense statements around your answer because that just takes you out of the work. The ego gets involved in there. So just yes or no. There's no wrong answer. It's just yes or no. If you answered no, is it true? No, then you just skip to number 3 in the little list here. But if you answered yes to the first question, is it true? Yes. Then you go to question number 2, which is, can you absolutely know that it's true? Again, just a yes or no answer. There's no wrong answer in that. If you feel a yes inside, do a strong yes and move on to number 3. And number 3 is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? You just sit with that, imagine you're in that situation, close your eyes, and then just see what you are feeling. What uncomfortable emotions are there? What actions are happening? What are you feeling? And you just kind of embrace that and look at that. And then you move on to number 4. So number 4, while you're still sitting in that situation in your mind, you ask yourself, who would I be without that thought? So you see yourself, disconnect from that thought for a moment and just see how that changes the situation in your mind. See how it changes your actions, your emotions, and actually changes the situation when you imagine letting go of the thought. The amazing thing that this did for me in that process up to that point was it made me realize when I was able to let go of my thought, my story about the situation, it dawned on me that it wasn't the situation that was causing all these uncomfortable emotions within me. It was my belief about the situation that was causing it all. Another part of the process is what she calls the turnarounds. And this is where so many of my ahas came from. You take one of the statements and you kind of turn it around the thought to either be where it's yourself or another person or kind of like the opposite to the statement. And then you find like 3 specific genuine examples of how each turnaround is true or truer for us in that situation. So let me give you a quick example of one of the statements from one of my worksheets because it'll make more sense when you see it as an example. So I was working on this for my job, and one of my statements was, I am angry with my employer because their expectations of me are unfair. So when you take that and you step through the 4 questions, so number 1, is that true that the expectations of my employer are unfair? When I put myself in the situation where I'm looking at like my weekly metrics and stressing out, in that situation, it feels like a yes. And immediately, my ego tries to jump in to explain why my answer of yes is correct. And I resist that urge because we don't want to get out of the work. I just want to answer yes or no. So I keep with my answer yes. So that takes me to question number 2. Can I absolutely know that it is true that the expectations of my employer on me are unfair? Well, my logic Spock mind says, can anything really be absolutely known? So on this one, I would answer no to that question. But if I still felt strongly about a yes, that would be just as right as the no, because those are my feelings and there are no wrong answers. Okay, then we move on to question number 3. How do I react? What happens when I believe that thought that the expectations of my employer are unfair? Well, you can imagine you probably go through, anyone probably has gone through this, but, I get angry, even resentful, stressed, fearful of losing my job, defensive. And I just move away from my loving self. So I embrace all those emotions and just sit in that for a moment before I move on to number 4. And that would be, who would I be without that thought? So I sit and I release that thought for a moment and I become calm, peaceful, joyful, even thankful for the job that I have. And I'm able to sit in love again, enjoying this moment and not worrying about the future. Sitting with that, I come to a truth that I can only do what I can do in this moment, and the future is tomorrow. I have no idea what will happen, so I can enjoy this moment. Then we move to those turnarounds, and with that, I can turn around the statement that I get angry with my employer because their expectations of me are unfair, and replace it with me instead. So that would look like I get angry with myself because my expectations of me are unfair. And then I think of 3 specific examples in this situation of how that is true. So with that, my expectations of me are unfair. Well, 1, I strive to be an above average performer because I think this makes me more lovable. And that is an unfair expectation of myself. Why should I be above average? Why can't I just be average? Stress. Second example, I can expect myself to always be loving and kind no matter what goes on around me. What a high bar. That is also unfair, an expectation on myself. I should be able just to experience and live in whatever emotion I'm experiencing. Number 3, thinking about it, I put pressure on myself by believing things are supposed to be a certain way. The home I have, possessions, cars, basically all the things that go into a belief about being a responsible adult. Can also turn around those statements to be like I anger my employer by the expectations I put on them, and see how that can be true. Can also turn around the opposite and make a statement, I am grateful with my employer because their expectations are fair. And I would try to find at least 3 genuine examples of how these statements are true as well. And these are important, these, examples. Sometimes we can just fly by them thinking, oh, okay, I get it. And it's like, no, specifically write them down or specifically state at least 3. Because what that does is it shows our brain evidence of how our original belief is untrue. And then knowing it is a lie, my mind lets go of the thought for me. I don't have to do anything except question the thought, and it takes care of itself. It's an amazing process, so I highly encourage you to at least look at one video that interests you, just to see if it's something that you might enjoy on your own journey. It's free, so can't hurt, right? This planet is a gigantic science building filled with laboratories and scientists who are madly working on their experiments. We see one scientist is working on solving a problem. It hits us that we think we have the resolution for their experiment. We bust into their lab and grab a vial from our pocket and pour it out on their experiment. It changes their experiment. They look at us, force a smile, slide their experiment into the trash, and call security to have us removed. Then they begin their experiment once again. They weren't trying to solve the problem. They were studying it, experiencing it. We don't know what someone really wants to experience. We don't know why someone is here on this planet. We can only really know ourselves. And even then, until we wake up, we may have no idea why we are conducting our own experiments in our own lab. I imagine that many of us want to have a pure experiment here without all the awareness of the vast universe. So we have dulled our memory to know just what is going on around us. We will eventually sober up from the forget potion we took to mask the memory of who we really are, powerful, supernatural beings made from unconditional love. Just give it time. We will wake up. There have been little reminders and smelling salts that we have asked to be placed throughout our lives So at a precise moment, we will begin to wake up. Maybe that is why you found this podcast and why you happen upon certain books or certain movies or certain individuals come across your path. We have planted flags and signs in our lives to wake us up from the dream when we are ready. You are ready. You are waking up. Next episode, we will look at the fear of the unknown. Until then, try to enjoy your experiment while it is happening. When you feel like you are judging someone else, take a deep breath and see if you can glance at what conditional love laws you have yourself under. Yeah, maybe fill out one of the Judge Your Neighbor worksheets and see what you see. Every moment is of unconditional love or the fear of losing conditional love. Remember who you are.